During many years, Ed China was the calm and smart one behind the wheeler dealer's bench. The person who made fixes that were impossible look easy. So one day, he was gone. "I'm sorry, but I think it's true. I'm leaving the show after 13 years of making wheeler buyers." This is the story of what happened after Ed turned off the TV, went into his workshop, and started making something that no one saw coming. When they opened Ed China's garage door, what they found inside will blow your mind. There are a lot of strange things about the truth. The quick leaving. Fans of wheeler dealers were shocked when Ed China announced in March 2017 that he was leaving the long-running and popular car show. The tall, friendly plumber had been the star of the show for more than 10 years. Known for his cool explanations and in-depth repairs of machines, Ed did 13 seasons and hundreds of car changes. But he chose to leave. It wasn't because he wasn't interested in cars anymore. There were more to the reasons. They didn't agree on the new direction of the show and had different ideas about what wheeler dealers should become. The show started out as a low-budget UK series and has since become a worldwide hit. It put Ed together with co-host Mike Brewer. Mike was in charge of buying and selling used cars, and Ed was in charge of fixing them up. Ed's in-depth workshop parts were what made wheeler dealers stand out. People saw the before and after. They learned the nuts and bolts, quirks, and solutions of giving a used car a new lease on life. That honesty and respect for the craft became important parts of the show's character. But things were going to change. Through Discovery Channel in 2017, the show Wheeler Dealers would be made in the United States instead of the UK, by a new production company. The move meant that the show would be made in a different way. The exit video for Ed got millions of views in just a few days. It said that the producers wanted to cut back on the workshop parts, less of the in-depth repair footage, and more streamlined edits to fit a faster pace and shorter runtime. Ed didn't agree. He talked about his reasons in the video in a calm but strong way. He said that this method would make the show less educational. He said that the risk wasn't just to the format but also to its very nature. Since watchers wouldn't be able to see enough of the work, the show would become more of a light entertainment than a real record of restoring cars. That was a red line for Ed, and he didn't want to give in. He walked away. At the time, reports from inside the business world said that problems had been building for a while. When the production changed, the focus shifted from technical details to broad appeal. The roots of the music were in the UK, but it was now made in the USA. Ed didn't see himself fitting into that future because he had built his on-screen character around being honest and giving direct help. Fans were surprised when he left. Reactions were strong and happened right away. A lot of people said things on social media. Some are mad, some are helpful, and a lot of them are just sad. For many long-time fans, Ed was what the show was all about. Being able to handle everything from stuck bolts to rebuilding whole engines with quiet confidence made him a unique type of TV mechanic, someone you looked up to and could learn from. Mike Brewer also spoke out, saying that he was sad about Ed's choice and reiterating his own plans to keep the show going. Wheeler Dealers would definitely be different from now on, even as he welcomed Ant Anstead as a new co-host. Ant Anstead used to work as a mechanic in Formula One. Because Mike and Ed had been together for years, they had grown close. It wasn't easy to recreate their relationship. Ed, on the other hand, didn't get angry. He avoided the drama and didn't point the finger. Instead, he gave his fans a calm and reasonable answer. But it was clear what it meant. The Wheeler Dealers version that made him famous was no longer a place where he could stand up for what he believed in. There were also effects on the person. Reports and outlets like The Sun and Metro say that fans had mean things to say about both Ed and Mike. Some of the hateful comments were made at the wrong people. Ed later admitted that his choice had made people feel very strongly. But he stuck by his choice, even though it wasn't easy. In interviews afterwards, he said that leaving was sad but unavoidable. Someone who put quality above all else could not go back after crossing that line. After that, he was gone. Ed stayed out of the public eye for almost a year after leaving Wheeler Dealers. There are no new shows or big news. People who liked him asked, what was he working on? Had he burned out? Was he done with TV for good? The answers would come, but not yet. To begin, Ed China needed some time, so he could think about things, get back on track, and, as we found out later, build something new in the void behind the closed doors of his own garage. The disappearance was strange and out of character. Ed had been well known in the car world for a long time, and not just because of the show. He had also been in public events, talks, and at car shows all over the UK and beyond. Then, when the news stopped coming in, rumors took its place. Had he given up TV for good? Was he worn out? Did he work on something behind my back? There were a lot of questions, but no solutions. Not much is known about this time period, but what is known is interesting. Ed didn't just disappear. He just turned inward. Several insider stories and interviews from later years say that he went back to his workshop, which was the same garage where many of his earlier inventions, like the motorized office chair and street-legal sofa, were born. This time, though, there were no cameras, no script, and no outside due dates. There were only tools, thoughts, and time. People who knew Ed well said that he was recharging during this time. After years of shooting on tight schedules and working with the rules of TV production, he was suddenly able to go at his own speed. He did it. He wasn't doing nothing. Not at all. But his attention changed. He wasn't building anything useful. He was just building again for the sake of building. There was a return to basics, and he fixed things and tried new things because he wanted to, not because he had to. Ed never stopped thinking, which is something that people who knew him often said. He was drawing, making prototypes, and going back to projects he had left for a long time, even when he wasn't in the public eye. Some of his ideas came from before Wheeler Dealers. They were concepts that didn't work well on the show, or inventions that needed time and space to be perfect. He had both now. At the time, there were a few unconfirmed claims that he was trying out electric vehicle conversions. It wouldn't be a surprise. Ed has always been interested in green technology and different types of powertrains. Some people even said he was working on a way to add current electric drivetrains to old cars without changing their look. It was only a whisper, though. During that year, there was no hard evidence to show what was going on behind those closed garage doors. Fans were interested in what did get out, though. Several threads on online sites asked where Ed had gone. People were filled with memories and worry when they watched old videos of Wheeler Dealers on YouTube and left comments. Some friends thought he had quit the business for good. Some people thought he was planning something big, but most people just hoped he was mentally, physically, and creatively okay. That worry wasn't without reason. There are effects when you quit a big show, especially if it was the one that made your career. In retrospect, Ed himself said that the change had been hard and stressful. While saying goodbye in public, he kept calm, but he had just cut ties with a global platform, a regular income, and a project he had worked hard on for years. It makes sense to think that they needed time to think about everything. Also, there's the issue of stress. Tough production schedules, being watched closely by producers, fans, and executives, and having to meet them for years, can wear down even the toughest people. Some people who work in the business say that Ed had been quietly complaining about being unhappy in the months before he left. Even though the artistic spark was still there, the situation didn't allow it to grow. The shed then turned into a safe place. Ed also took some time away from social media during this time. There was no more tweets from him. His YouTube channel stayed empty. The silence was almost creepy for someone who is so linked to do-it-yourself projects and being open and honest. There were times when rumors came up. Some fans who were really paying attention said they saw him at local engineering shows or at quiet antique car meets. These sightings led to even more rumors. Was he looking into the market, looking for people to work with and trying a new idea behind closed doors? No one was sure, and Ed wasn't saying. Still, the wonder grew as the silence lasted longer. What did that building have going on? Ed seemed to be taking a well-deserved break. Or, as he often does, was he trying to figure out something that would surprise everyone? It got more and more exciting as 2018 went on. A few mysterious changes began to show up. There were short blog posts, interviews, and other hints that something was going to happen. Ed was still there. His only goal was to stay hidden. Then, almost exactly 1 year after he stopped working in TV, a new clip showed up on YouTube. There was no big deal or marketing campaign, just a movie called Garage Revival Episode 1. It was clear from the name. But before the comeback could happen, the year of silence had to be used for something. It wasn't a hole, it was the incubator. And what was going on behind that garage door was about to make everything different. The workshop comes to life. Ed China came back in May 2018, but not to TV. He came back on his own terms with a YouTube show he made called Ed China's Garage Revival. Fans weren't met with marketing hype or a flashy rebranding when the band came back after almost a year of quiet. Instead, they were met with something simpler, purer, and definitely Ed. The idea was surprisingly solid, which was nice. Find people who had already started fixing up cars and help them finish what they couldn't do on their own. Ed went to home garages all over the UK, in each show to work with regular car fans whose cars had been sitting idle for years. These projects had been put on hold because of a lack of time, technical know-how, or money. Ed was there to bring them back to life. There was more to Garage Revival than just cars, though. It was about people. There was a deeper emotional thread running through the show. It showed the frustration of unfinished goals, the love behind every oily frame, and the relief that comes from finally getting the help someone needs to move on. Ed did more than just fix cars. He was getting things moving again. The first show was about a classic VW Golf GTI that was left half-built and not finished. The owner, who had done everything he could with the tools and information he had, let Ed join his half-done project, which was a mess. After that, a careful and honest evaluation of the car's state followed. Ed wasn't interested in being filmed. To make things more interesting, he didn't make things easier. In front of everyone, he got down on the ground and made it clear what had to be done and why. That sound became what Garage Revival was known for. Without a doubt, it was real. Audio tracks and voiceovers are not used. There is only a camera, a car, and Ed doing what he always does best, discussing complicated car problems in simple language. He showed how to free a brake line that was stuck. There were times when a gearbox wasn't working right, so he talked about how it all worked on the inside. He had deep dives on wheeler dealers that fans had missed, so this was like coming home. The production values were meant to be low. Ed was no longer getting help from a TV station. There were no strict broadcast schedules or executive producers in charge of the format. He was in charge, he wrote, spoke, and even helped with the editing. Real was more important than smooth, and that was the point. The answer came right away. Within days, the first show had tens of thousands of views. Fans welcomed him back, thanked him for staying true to his style, and expressed relief that the fallout from the industry hadn't dulled his fire. The comments section read like a reunion. Some people said it was even better than Wheeler Dealers. It was more about the why behind each fix, and made it more personal. From the inside, the start of Garage Revival was also a test. Insiders in the business say that Ed wasn't sure if he wanted to come back to the public eye at all. He could try things out without committing to a long-term deal with the YouTube series. It let him try new things and get back in touch with his audience directly, without any other people getting in the way. Also, it changed how he interacted with his neighborhood. Fans could now leave direct comments on his work and get answers for the first time. They could give him ideas for cars to talk about, ways to explain things, or even information he might have missed. More episodes came out over the next few months. Here is a triumphant trumpet, and there is an abandoned Land Rover. Each story moved slowly and didn't take any shortcuts. There weren't any flashy changes set to music videos. These were real changes that had to deal with real-world problems like stubborn bolts, snags, and improvised fixes. Everyone who has done work like this before knows how hard it can be. That's what made Garage Revival stand out. It was not about being perfect. It was about not giving up. Ed wasn't showing people how to make show cars. He showed them how to do that one job right that they had been putting off for months. In doing so, he brought back the spirit of hands-on, educational car material that had been slowly dying out in mainstream auto media. It is important to remember that Garage Revival did not become a huge brand, but it did not need to. Ed did it on his own time, as a way to get back to doing what he loved, while still being independent. It was a clear message for people who had been following his story for years. He hadn't gone away. He had just gone off track. Ed had shown that he could make his own plans by the end of 2018. He didn't need a company with a lot of money to stay popular. It was enough for him to have a camera, a job that was worth finishing, and a reason to get his hands dirty. The workshop lights were back on with Garage Revival, and this time they were all his. In the back, behind the doors. After some time, a private tour was set up. When they looked inside Ed China's garage, what they found will blow your mind. Beyond a messy garage and shelves full of forgotten parts is Ed's workshop, hidden behind doors that aren't marked. He has spent years quietly making his own world. It's also hard to decide where to look first once you're inside. The famous street-legal sofa is parked against one wall. It's a car made from armchairs, suspension parts, and a lot of weirdness. The motorized bathroom is close by. It's a toilet on wheels that works completely, with pipes and a steering column. These tricks weren't just for fun. The cars were real and had license plates. They used to drive around showing what's possible when engineering meets creativity. There was a lot of wonder and fun, but one finding stood out not in a good way. People who were there for a rare private tour of the garage said that in a dark back corner they saw a prototype that had been partly taken apart. It had been meant for a public demonstration that clearly went wrong. It was called a self-steering bar stool and an experiment in small-scale personal movement with gyroscopic stabilization. However, the project had been left in a state that can only be described as unpleasant. Wires were hanging from control boxes that were on fire. The board below had burn marks on it. One witness said it was clear that the lithium battery case had been damaged by heat, and charred material could still be seen on the equipment nearby. Even though no one was hurt, the evidence showed that Ed had just barely avoided a major workshop fire. It was a rare look into the risks of constant innovation, for a maker known for being precise and in charge. That thing looked like it tried to cook itself alive, said someone in the business. These tricks weren't just for fun. The cars were real and had license plates. They used to drive around showing what's possible when engineering meets creativity. There was a lot of wonder and fun, but one finding stood out not in a good way. People who were there for a rare private tour of the garage said that in a dark back corner they saw a prototype that had been partly taken apart. It had been meant for a public demonstration that clearly went wrong. It was called a self-steering bar stool and an experiment in small-scale personal movement with gyroscopic stabilization. However, the project had been left in a state that can only be described as unpleasant. Wires were hanging from control boxes that were on fire. The board below had burn marks on it. One witness said it was clear that the lithium battery case had been damaged by heat, and charred material could still be seen on the equipment nearby. Even though no one was hurt, the evidence showed that Ed had just barely avoided a major workshop fire. It was a rare look into the risks of constant innovation, for a maker known for being precise and in charge. That thing looked like it tried to cook itself alive, said someone in the business. And this fits, even though it's awful that this could happen. The shed is more than just a play area. The place is a lab. Ed doesn't check his thoughts. He goes after them. Some turn into legal works of art. Others, like the bar stool that can steer itself, fail horribly during tests. That being said, each bolt, sketch, and sooty sample tells the same story. A mind that keeps getting bigger. People don't see this side of Ed very often. In the end, he is an inventor who works alone and is surrounded by tests that make it hard to tell the difference between genius and madness. It only shows how far he's ready to go to make something that no one else would dare try. If some of those experiments have a few burn marks on them. New things. After Garage Revival's small but heartfelt success, Ed China was at a very important crossroads. He had shown that he could do it on his own, that his name, fame, and love of the show could carry it without the help of a big network. For Ed, though, reinventing himself meant more than just going back to star in movies. It had to do with completely changing his place in the world of cars. He was able to rethink not only his job but also his priorities as a creator and engineer during his time away from mainstream TV. Ed had been quietly thinking about things other than standard combustion engines for years, even though a lot of people still knew him as the guy from Wheeler Dealers. He had been playing around with ideas for sustainable transportation, alternative powertrains, and hybrid retrofits for a long time, long before electric vehicles became popular. Having full power over a platform gave him the chance to finally share his thoughts with the world. Ed began a new YouTube show in April 2021 called Ed China's Workshop Diaries. The method was easy, but the goal was bigger. Workshop Diaries took viewers right into Ed's garage, where he kept his tools, projects, and experiments. This was different from Garage Revival, which was about helping other people finish their unfinished projects. He was back to the kind of in-depth educational material that made him famous, but this time he added a modern twist to it. Every week, the show had new episodes that were usually between 20 and 40 minutes long and covered a wide range of topics, from engine breakdowns to analyzing parts of electric vehicles. The tone was what made it stand out, though. It wasn't meant to be a sleek, high-octane TV show substitute. It was close, honest, and slowly built up. Ed acted like an old friend when he talked to the camera. He showed people every step of a project and explained not only what he was doing, but also why. An old standard Mini was turned into an electric car as part of an early project. It showed that the idea worked. Ed wanted to show that turning things into electric cars didn't have to be hollow. When paired with modern drivetrains, that character, charm, and classic look could live on and even thrive. People could see how the technical work was done in real life. Changes to motor mounts, choosing battery packs, and linking control units up. There were no filler words, and the point was clear. It wasn't just fixing cars. It was sustainable tech that had effects in the real world. Workshop Diaries changed what it was about as the series went on. Some shows focused on more traditional restoration work, like fixing problems with suspension systems, gearboxes, or fuel systems. Others looked into more abstract ideas, like making lightweight body parts out of recycled materials, or testing out older platforms with regenerative braking systems. In some episodes, Ed even tried tools that people had made themselves, or held long Q&As based on questions that viewers sent in. The content wasn't chosen by companies. There were no marketers who set the tone. It was creative thinking and skill that didn't stop. In many ways, the series was Ed's most clear statement of purpose to date, a mix of learning, new ideas, and easy access. He was questioning what most people thought, and he told both hobbyists and pros that their garages should not be seen as places to store things but as labs. Most of the responses to Workshop Diaries were good. A lot of comments came in from both old and new fans, who loved how well the series explained things, how much they learned, and how calm it made them feel. It wasn't flashy, but it was very gratifying. People who watched felt like they were learning from someone who cared about the future of transportation. There was also an emotional thread that ran through the shows that was never said. As you watched each show, you could tell that Ed had taken some time to heal after leaving Wheeler Dealers. He wasn't angry. Instead, he was quietly sure that he had found his voice again. The show helped a man get back into the world on his own terms, and it was beneficial. Workshop Diaries had grown into more than just a niche YouTube program. By the start of its second year, it became a gathering place for engineers, tinkerers, old car fans, and people who are interested in the future. Ed would sometimes have guests on, sometimes former coworkers or friends from the business, but the show's topic never shifted. The show was still a one-man show about hard work, careful thought, and engineering that counts. That, of course, goes to the bigger picture, the memory of Ed China. In the fast-paced worlds of media and automotive entertainment, Ed's trip brings to light something that is easily missed: not giving up on your values. Ed might have been able to stay with Wheeler Dealers. He could have accepted the money and changed into a faster, flashier version of himself. He didn't, though. He gave up on a formula that worked because it didn't fit with his core belief that the process is just as important as the result. That how is just as important as what. Even though it was a risky choice, it won him respect from people who aren't car fans. In a business world where giving in is common, he became a figure of honesty. Because he cared about honesty, quality, and teaching, even when the cameras were off. It might have even gotten bigger. Ed is still making Workshop Diaries today. He is still exploring new technologies and topics, and answering questions that most shows don't try to ask. He's there for every teen who picks up a wrench for the first time, every garage mechanic who can't loosen a stubborn bolt, and every engineer who wants to know if old tools can be used in a cleaner, greener future. He's calm, patient, and always interested. His website serves as a large-scale mentorship and a lesson that craftsmanship is still alive, and that engineering is about finding solutions to problems, being patient, and having a purpose. Do you agree? Share your thoughts below.